Hi, boys and girls. This is Mrs. Olson, and today we are actually going to start our very first domain, which is classic tales. And the classic tale that we're going to enjoy is called Wind in the Willows. This first read aloud is called The Riverbank, Part 1. So here's some background knowledge for you to help understand a little bit about this story. Wind in the Willows is written in British English, which is slightly different than American English. So you'll hear some words that seem a little funny, but mean something very familiar in our American English. This is a fictional story, which is about animal characters living near a river and woods or a forest. The main characters are a mole, a water rat, a badger, and a toad. And there those characters are. You're going to hear a term called personification. I love that word. Say it for me. Personification. This is when an animal or an object in a story behaves or is described like a person would be. Here are some examples. The flame of the candle danced in the dark. Now, does a flame really dance? No. Do people really dance? Yes. So the candle has been personified because it's being given a human characteristic. Here's another example. The cat's ghastly singing woke me this morning. Again, do cats really sing? No, but people do. So again, the cat has been personified. It's been given a human characteristic. Your purpose for listening today is to listen carefully to hear about the adventures that these animals have along the riverbank. The mole had been working very hard all the morning, spring cleaning his little home. First with brooms, then with dusters, then on ladders and steps and chairs, with a brush and a pail of whitewash. He did this until he had dust in his throat and his eyes, and splashes of whitewash all over his black fur. Spring was moving in, and the air above, and the earth below, and around him, and his dark, lowly little house. Any wonder he suddenly flung down his brush on the floor and said, "Bother!" and "Hang the spring cleaning!" And he bolted out of the house without even taking his coat. Mole immediately made for the steep little tunnel, and without a moment's hesitation, he began scraping and scratching and scrambling. He worked busily with his little paws and muttered to himself, "Up we go! Up we go!" till at last, pop! His snout came out into the sunlight, and he found himself rolling in the warm grass of a great meadow. "This is fine," he said to himself. "This is better than whitewashing," he added as he jumped with delight at the joy of spring. In this state of happiness, he made his way across the meadow till he reached the hedge on the farther side. It all seemed too good to be true, as moving hither and thither, he observed everywhere birds building and leaves and flowers bursting forth. He thought his happiness was complete. As he meandered aimlessly along, he came to the edge of a full-fed river. There he stood, quite mesmerized, as never before had he seen a river. He watched in awe as it shimmered and shined, gurgled and burbled, swirled and curled its way seaward. So bewitched and fascinated was he that he trotted for a while by the side of it. Eventually, exhausted by this tremendous effort, he sat down on the bank to rest. As he sat on the grass and gazed across the river, a dark hole in the bank opposite, just above the water's edge, caught his eye. Mole quietly contemplated what a nice snug dwelling place it would make. As he gazed, something bright and small seemed to twinkle like a tiny star down in the heart of it. But it could hardly be a star, and it was too glittering and small for a glowworm. Then, as he looked, it winked at him, and so revealed itself to be an eye, and a small face began gradually to grow up around it, like a frame around a picture. A brown little face with whiskers, a grave round face with the same twinkle in its eye, small, neat ears, thick, silky hair. It was the water rat. The two animals stood and regarded each other cautiously. "Hello, Mo," said the water rat. "Hello, rat," said the mole. "Would you like to come over?" inquired the rat. "Oh, it's all very well to ask," said the mole, rather grumpily, he being new to this side of life and its ways. The rat said nothing, but stooped and unfastened a rope and hauled on it, then lightly stepped into a little boat, which the mole had not observed. It was painted blue outside and white within, and was just the size for two animals, and the mole loved it immediately. The rat sculled across. Then he held up his forepaw as the mole stepped gingerly down. "Lean on that," he said. "Now then, step lively." And the mole, to his great delight, found himself actually seated in the stern of a real boat. "This has been a wonderful day," he said, as the rat shoved off and took the sculls again. "Do you know I've never been in a boat before in all my life?" "What?" cried the rat, open-mouthed. "Never been in a— You never— Well, what have you been doing then?" "Is it so nice at all a that?" asked the mole shyly, though he was quite prepared to believe it as he leant back in his seat and surveyed the cushions, the oars, and all the fascinating things. "Nice? It's the only thing," said Rat solemnly as he leaned forward for his stroke. "Believe me, my young friend, there is nothing, absolutely nothing, half so much worth doing as simply messing about in boats. Simply messing," he went on dreamily. "Look ahead, Rat!" cried the mole suddenly. It was too late. The mole struck the bank full tilt. The oarsman lay on his back at the bottom of the boat, his heels in the air. "About in boats or with boats," the rat went on cheerily, picking himself up with a pleasant laugh. "In or out of them, it doesn't matter. Look here, if you've really nothing else to do, what do you say we spend some time on the river together?" The mole waggled his nose from sheer happiness, spread his chest with a sigh of contentment, and leaned back blissfully into the soft cushions. "What a day I'm having!" he said. "Let us start at once." "Hold on a minute, then," said the rat, as he tied fast the boat and climbed up into his hole above. Moments later he reappeared, staggering, under a fat wicker luncheon basket. "Shove that under your feet," he said to the mole as he passed it down into the boat. Then he untied the boat and took the sculls again. "What's inside it?" asked the mole eagerly. "There's cold chicken inside it," replied Rat. "Cold tongue, cold ham, cold beef, salad, French rolls, crescent sandwiches, pod meat, ginger lemonade, soda water." "Oh, stop!" cried the mole. "This is too much." "Do you really think so?" inquired the rat seriously. "It's only what I always take on these little excursions. The other animals complain that I hardly have enough." The mole did not hear a word he said. He was already absorbed in the new life he was entering upon. He trailed a paw in the water and dreamed long waking dreams. The water rat, like the good little fellow he was, sculled steadily on and did not disturb him. "I like your clothes, old chap," the rat remarked after some half an hour or so passed. "I'm going to get a velvet jacket myself some day." "I beg your pardon," said Mole, pulling himself together with an effort. "You must think me very rude, but all this is so new to me. So this is a river." "The river," corrected the rat. "And you jolly live by the river? What a jolly life!" "By it, and with it, and on it, and in it," said the rat. "It's brother and sister to me, and aunts, and company, and food, and drink, and naturally, washing. It's my world, and I don't want any other." "But isn't it a bit dull at times?" the mole asked. "Just you and the river, and no one else to pass a word with? No one else to— Well, I mustn't be hard on you," said the rat. "You're new to it. The bank is so crowded nowadays that many people are moving away altogether. Oh, no, it isn't what it used to be at all. Otters, kingfishers, dabchicks, morans, All of them about all day long, always wantin' you to do something, as if a fellow has no time of his own to attend." "What lies over there?" asked Mole, waving a paw towards a background of woodland that darkly framed the water meadows on one side of the river. "Well, replied the Rat hesitantly, "that's the Wild Wood. We don't go there too often." "Are there scary creatures there?" Mole asked, trying not to tremble. "The squirrels are all right," Rat replied, "and the rabbits, some of 'em. But rabbits are a mixed lot. And then there's Badger, of course. He lives right in the heart of it. Wouldn't live anywhere else. Dear old Badger, nobody bothers him." "Why, who should interfere with him?" asked the Mole. "Well, of course, there are others," explained the Rat in a hesitating sort of way. "Weasels, stoats, foxes, and so on. They're all right in a way. I'm very good friends with them, past the time of day when we meet, but you can't trust 'em, and that's a fact." "And beyond the Wild Wood?" Mole asked. "Beyond the Wild Wood is the Wild World," said Rat, "and that's something that doesn't matter either to you or me. I've never been there, and I'm never going. Nor you either. If you've got any sense, don't ever refer to it again, please. Now then, here's our backwater at last, where we're going to lunch."